Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to English Coach 3 T's. Today I have a story about the time I got culture shock in Oaxaca, Mexico. If you're not familiar with Mexico, Oaxaca is a little more south in the country, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this vacation. Not really a vacation. It was an immersion trip that my daughter Tianna and I took. But first, if I haven't met you, my name is Tanya. I am the creator of our She Speaks Fluency program for women. And I live here currently in Southern California, although I'm originally from the middle part of the United States. And I see my hair is looking kind of funky. Funky is a if you wanna say your hair is looking strange or different, you can say, "My hair is looking kind of funky." So there's your first vocabulary word for the day. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see people here. Let me know if this is your first time joining me live or if you've been with me here before, or do you usually watch the recording of these lives? And where are you from? Tell me a little bit about yourself so I can get to know you. I know we have some regulars on our live who come every time and some regulars who watch the recording every time. So I'm getting to know some of you bit by bit, which is one of my favorite parts of my job. So let's get started with the story. This was I was thinking about it this morning, almost 5 years ago that Tiana and I decided to go and immerse ourselves in the Spanish language in Mexico. At that time, we were living in Arizona, which is right next to California, and we had a lot of people around us who spoke Spanish in Arizona and California. There are a lot of Spanish speaking people, but it was hard to be immersed where you would speak the language all the time. So we decided, pardon me, to go to Mexico. Pardon me. And we decided to go for a month where we would have us three weeks to be in an immersion program similar to our fluency program, but in person. And then 1 week to travel and explore the country, which I'm really glad we did. Oaxaca is a really interesting part of the world. Let me take a drink of my tea here. Mm, okay. I see people from Poland and Colombia and Ukraine, Turkey, Paris, Brazil, Croatia, all over the world. This is exciting. Russia. Welcome, welcome. I see that the person from Russia has the same name as me. I love that. And Joanka, I might be mispronouncing that, I'm sorry, says, "I've been here before and I love your sessions. Thank you so much." What do you love? Tell me. A lot of people tell me they love these lives. What do you love? Tell me because it makes me more aware, then I have more ideas of what everyone loves so I can continue doing more of that. Okay, Mary is here from Mexico. Welcome, everyone. So today we're talking about culture shock. What is culture shock? Culture shock is the feeling of disorientation or discomfort when you feel uncomfortable because you're in an unfamiliar culture, a different way of life, we could say. And for me, I thought, I'm not going to get culture shock when I go to Mexico. There is a lot of Mexican culture in Arizona and California. I won't get culture shock. I know a lot about the food. I speak some of the language. I have lots of friends who are Mexican. I'm going to be okay. This this was not true for me. We can get culture shock because we don't have our regular touchstones in life. Now, I'll put that word in the chat here live. I got it right the first time this time. If you've been following me for some time, you will know that it I point in the wrong direction a lot because the the um the chat is right here. I'm pointing at it in my reality. I'm pointing at it right now. But for your reality on the video, I have to point the other direction and I always forget. So I'm getting it. Practice, practice, practice. I'm getting it. Okay, so back to what is a touchstone. So originally, a touchstone was a stone that you could touch this stone and touch that stone and see if they were the same to kind of judge the quality or the reality of this other stone. Are they the same? Another way to think of a touchstone is in our lives, we have lots of touchstones that help to keep us centered, balanced, and we then have less stress in our lives. So for me, I have touchstones like my pets. You may have any or some or all of these. My pets, the people in my lives, in my life. I only have one life, but I do have my Pippa here. Oh, Pippa decided to walk in front of the camera. Um, the things that I do regularly, my routine, the food I eat, these are all touchstones. My meditation practice, my reading practice, the hobbies that I enjoy, the exercise I do regularly in the same place. These are all touchstones that, whether I think about it or not, and I usually don't, this is making me feel safe. Just like other animals, humans are animals. We have certain things that make us feel safe. And this is true for us as humans. And I didn't think about how much that would change when I went to Mexico. In fact, I underestimated it. Underestimated. I'm just going to put it in the present tense. To underestimate something means to not really think about it enough. Underestimate. So I got culture shock and I didn't even realize I was getting culture shock. And I have some interesting numbers to share with you. But first, I want to say hi to Wilson. So great to see you. And Marjorie, great to see you. Juanka says, I love your way of explaining your pronunciation, which I understand 90%, and I love the way you are. Thank you so much. This is fabulous news because for you, Juanka or Juanka depends on where you're from, I think. Um, it if you are understanding 90%, this is really, really good. Your goal is to be able to understand 95% of whatever you're listening to or reading. This is the book we are reading in the She Speaks Fluency program right now. And it's probably an advanced book. My friend Regnum, I don't know how to say your name, but I know you're a regular here in the lives, in the recorded videos everywhere. This is a book I believe would be on your level. I don't know for sure since I haven't talked to you, but this is an advanced book, but the intermediate ladies in my program can read it because we're reading it together and I'm helping them with the vocabulary and the one of, I would say, the very best way to learn vocabulary is by reading. Another really good way is to listen to things where you understand 95% or more. And even if you understand 100%, which some of you might be understanding 100%, you are increasing your vocabulary by reminding your brain that these are words you want to keep in your vocabulary and putting them in different contexts. So this is a very good thing. All right. So back to the story. Oh, the numbers about culture shock. I took some notes here because I put a poll here on YouTube. I didn't think to put it on Instagram. That might have been a really good idea. If you don't follow me on Instagram, I have the same name there and you can follow me there. But the poll here on YouTube, More than 100 people answered the poll, and 56% of people said yes, they have had culture shock. That's not too surprising to me since everyone here is learning a language. Uh, 32% no, said no, they haven't experienced culture shock. That also doesn't surprise me because a lot of people who are learning a language are learning it in their mother country, in their native country, and they may not have left their country, or they may not have gone to another culture. Even if they've left their country, the cultures could be very similar. For example, when I went to England, the culture was different than mine and very, very interesting. And even though I was there for, uh, I don't remember exactly how much time, but plenty of time to get culture shock, I didn't experience culture shock. They speak the same language with some differences. A lot of their culture is in our culture, so I didn't experience culture shock, even though I went to a different country. And 12% of people said, I don't understand. So I already told what culture shock is, although I'll be talking about it more. If you missed that, you can watch the beginning of this when I post the recording. Wilson can understand 95%. This is awesome because this means you are doing the very best thing, in my opinion, what you can do to become more fluent. So, Wilson and everyone who's listening, no matter how much you can understand, to make your learning practice even better, I would suggest when you finish watching this video to talk about it to someone you know, or even just to kind of talk to yourself about it in English, to remind yourself to use some of those words and phrases you're listening to now. Use them. That tells your brain, oh, you're not only listening, you're also using some of those words. I better store those words. I better keep those words. So this is really a great way to use all of these videos here live and the recorded videos and other videos you listen to on YouTube. Tata Galaxy said, I got big culture shock in India. That would be a lot of culture shock for me too. I would love to go to India. Do we have anyone from India listening to the videos? Tell us a little bit about your culture. And anyone who has had culture shock, tell me a little tell me a little bit about it here in the chat or in the comments if you're listening to the recording. So here's what happened for me. I'm in Mexico. I'm thinking I'm not going to get culture shock. I think I had been there for about a week, maybe a little bit more. All of my regular touchstones, like I said, talked about before, all of my regular touchstones were gone, except that my daughter was with me, but we had made a pact, put it in the comments here. We had made a pact or an agreement, a very strong agreement that we would only speak Spanish because we wanted to be immersed. Unless we had an emergency, which we did have one, or we also decided if one of us gets sick. I got very sick, probably from eating fresh vegetables in the marketplace, so they were full of the water that my body is not used to. I got what I call ugly sick. I'm not gonna go into details, but it was ugly. It was terrible. This was a little before I got culture shock, and, I was so sick, everything was different. I was trying to keep going to the things we had planned so that I could get the benefits of the immersion, where typically here at home, I'm very good at taking care of myself. If I'm sick, I take very good care of myself and watch what I eat and how much exercise I get or resting, all of those things. And that was all different for me. And I really was not aware of how many things were changing. So One night, we were staying in our room, which we stayed in the majority of the time that we were there, but we did change where we stayed, at least once. I think we stayed in 2 different places. That alone with all the other I shouldn't say that alone. That with all the other stuff contributed to this. And one night, I was having a meltdown. I'm gonna put this word in, a meltdown. Do you know the word meltdown or the word packed? Let me know in the comments if you know, if you already knew the word packed or the word meltdown, or if these new words for you. So I had a meltdown, meaning that I just another way we say this kind of more like slang is I lost it. Now, when we say I lost it or someone else lost it, this is not kind at all. This is considered negative, very negative. A meltdown is somewhat negative, but it's just a fact. It's when you say someone had a meltdown, it's a fact. I would be careful about the way I use the word meltdown, but I lost it or she lost it. I would be very careful with that phrase, meaning that I'll tell you what happened for me. Meltdowns can look different for different people, but I was crying. You could say I was weepy. Weepy is everything made me cry. I wasn't crying like boo. That's very, very much crying. Weepy is more like everything makes you cry all the time. That's weepy. Um, Yes, Rodrigo, a meltdown is an emotional breakdown. Rodrigo put it in the chat exactly right. An emotional breakdown. And for me, it was about crying and big upset. I was very upset. Everything was bothering me. For some people, it could be more anger than usual. It could be more of any strong uncomfortable emotion because basically, like I said before, um, culture shock. I lost my train of thought there for a minute. Culture shock is a feeling of discomfort. You're uncomfortable. But for me, and I think this is true of a lot of people, you're not aware of how uncomfortable you are. And you're not aware of how much all of your typical normal touchstones help you to maintain your equilibrium. There's an advanced term. If you don't know it and you are not advanced, just ignore that. I'm going to tell you another way to say it. It's hard to maintain your equilibrium. For my advanced students, it's hard to maintain your equilibrium means it's hard to stay balanced. For my intermediate students, you can just say that. It's hard to stay balanced. To stay balanced. Hello, I see we have another person joining from Russia. Welcome. Okay, and Panama, welcome. In South Africa, in Cape Town, I would love to explore all of those places, Panama and Africa. Okay, Tata Galaxy says, I got lost in India. Oh, getting lost in a foreign country is very, very, for me, very scary. And we had that experience, but that's another story. I went up to the hut of local residents, told about the problem. I was on a bicycle. A nice local woman started up her bike and showed me the way to my hotel. Oh, I love Tata Galaxy. Thank you for sharing this story. It's giving me goosebumps. It's going to make me cry. Happy tears because I love hearing the kind stories of people around the world who help each other out. Thank you so much for sharing this. The sweet Indian woman refused the money I offered her. Oh, she just was doing a random act of kindness, we say, a random act of kindness. And I didn't plan to talk about this, but If all of us here who are listening to this video would do more random acts of kindness, it doesn't have to be as big as this story that Tata Galaxy told us, but it could be even tiny little small, it could be smiling at someone in public. It could be helping someone in some very small way. I really believe the world would be a better place. Zach, welcome back. I know this is one of our regulars here. When I lived in Thai, they enjoyed swimming under the moonlight, not the sunlight, because in daytime the sunlight is too strong to swim in the lake or the river. You know, we did this in Arizona too. It gets so hot in Arizona. Um, where I live this last weekend was so hot. I know I'm going over time a little, but that's okay. We're having a great conversation here. This weekend where I lived, it got up to 100 degrees Celsius in the mountains of California. Very unusual. That is about 38 degrees Celsius. And just an hour away from my home here in Southern California, in Palm Springs. You may have heard of Palm Springs. A lot of famous people like to spend time in Palm Springs because they have a lot of spas and places you can go to relax. And it's not even on my thermometer. It got to 124, which would be more. See, my thermometer only goes to 120. Down there, it got to 124, which is more than 50 degrees Celsius. It's unbelievable. We had a heat wave here in California. So, okay, yes, Rodrigo, I totally agree with you. Rodrigo says, fortunately, there are still good, kind-hearted souls out there. I believe we have more than we even are aware of. I believe most people are good, kind-hearted souls. We just hear about the opposite, the bad news, so much. So I love hearing about these good-hearted. What did you say? I loved the way you said it. Kind-hearted souls. I totally agree. Mm. Okay, I'm going to wrap my story up so I can answer any questions you have about the vocabulary or the story. So if you have questions, put them in the chat or the comments when I post this live. So I had this meltdown. I was crying. I was upset. I was completely stressed out. I was complaining a lot. And I was having a great time being in Mexico. I was living my dream. I think this is one of the things that confuses us. We are doing something we dreamed of, yet we have this meltdown, which is a breakdown, an emotional breakdown. And it's like, what is happening? I will tell you, I felt like I was going crazy. I don't know if anyone has ever felt like that. Let me know. Give me some hearts or a thumbs up, or yes, I have felt that way. I wasn't going crazy. I was having culture shock. And I didn't know it, but I was crying and complaining, and I was saying, I don't know what's wrong with me. And thank goodness Tiana was with me. And Tiana has traveled a lot more than I have, her mama. um, Different generations, different, times. And there's a lot of reasons for that. That's another story. Um, and she is more aware of what culture shock is. And at that time, I learned a lot since then. And she said, Mama, I think you're experiencing culture shock. And I remember it just stopped me like, wait a minute. Could that be true? Is that what's happening for me? And I will tell you, it actually was very helpful to know that because it helped to explain what was going on with me. I wasn't just losing it. I'm going to write that phrase again because I talked about to lose it. I wasn't just losing it, which we consider to be a very bad thing. I wasn't going crazy, is another way to say that. They're not, neither of these are kind ways to say it. And so that really helped me to feel better. I have to say, this is one of a few reasons that I am passionate about my fluency program because for anyone learning a second language, it is difficult, and especially when we don't have the support we need. And so that is why I have created my fluency program for women. And if you are a woman with an intermediate level or above, if you understand about 80% of what I'm saying or more, then I would love to invite you to my free class for women where I'm going to teach you three of my best tips so that you can become more fluent and help you to understand why what you're doing may not be working and tell you what you can do so that it will work better. It will be easier and you can become fluent faster. I will put the link below here when I post this video. You can see the link in the description for the free class for women. And if you're not a woman, I would invite you to invite the women that you care about to come and take this class if they want to learn English. So I see someone from Budapest. I'm going to see if we have any questions. I see Quebec, Canada. Welcome, Shirley. Are you originally from Canada? Sometimes I get students who want to improve their English because they've moved to Canada. Haven't had a student that lives in Canada and, for example, speaks mostly French and wants to improve their English, but I can see that that would be possible. I'm going to look and see if there are any questions. But first, let me tell you that after I learned that the meltdown, the emotional breakdown I was having was from culture shock, the rest of the trip was much better. We did have an emergency that happened there. It felt like an emergency to us. I'll tell that story at another time. But if you've ever been in a foreign country, you know that a lot of things can happen that you didn't expect. So let me see if there are any questions here. Brazil, welcome. Thailand, welcome. Okay, I don't see any questions right now, but what I would tell you is if I did see your question, or if you think of a question, come and put it on the recording to this video because typically look at the questions, all of them, for 24 hours. And I try to get to as many comments as I can. I used to answer all my comments. Now that my channel has gotten bigger, I can't answer every single one, but I do appreciate every comment I get because it helps me to be able to continue doing this and to do it more. Like now I have two lives instead of one. So thank you to everyone. You are making that possible. And like I said, I will tell you the other story about what happened in Mexico. But if you are wanting to practice your English more right now, get more input that will help you to be more fluent, I will put a video right here to help you to do that as soon as I post this video on my recorded videos. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another class soon.